Elena Martinez wiped sweat from her forehead as she checked the weather readings on her computer screen. The storm was getting worse. Wind speeds had reached dangerous levels, and the rain pounded against her research station like angry fists. She had been alone on this alien planet for 3 months, studying the strange crystal formations that covered most of the surface. The planet looked beautiful during calm weather. Purple crystals grew everywhere, creating forests that sparkled in the light of 2 suns. But when storms came, this place turned deadly. The crystals conducted electricity, making lightning strikes common and powerful. Elena walked to the window of her small habitat dome and looked outside. Through the purple rain, she could see something moving. At first, she thought it was just another crystal tree bending in the wind. Then she saw it clearly and her heart stopped. A creature stood outside her dome. It was huge, at least 12 feet tall, with a body that looked like it was made of the same purple crystals as the trees. 6 long arms moved from its body, each ending in sharp claws that could easily cut through metal. Its head was large and round, with many eyes that glowed like tiny stars. Elena had read about these creatures in the research files. They were called Vorthak, and they were the top predators on this planet. According to every report, they were deadly hunters that killed anything that moved. They were supposed to be extremely intelligent, but also completely hostile to any other life forms. The creature outside her dome was not acting like a predator, though. It moved slowly and carefully, almost like it was trying not to scare her. When their eyes met through the thick glass, Elena saw something she never expected to see in an alien predator. The creature looked desperate. Elena stepped back from the window, her hands shaking. She had weapons in her station, but they would be useless against something that size. The creature could break through her dome easily if it wanted to hurt her. Instead, it just stood there waiting. The storm grew stronger. Lightning struck a crystal tree nearby, making the whole area glow bright purple for a moment. The creature did not move away from the lightning. It seemed to be protecting something. Elena grabbed her translation device and activated the emergency protocols. The device was designed to work with any intelligent species, using mathematical patterns and basic concepts to build communication. She had never tried it with a Vorthak before. She pressed the device against the window and activated it. Immediately, lights and sounds came from the machine. The creature outside tilted its head and made a sound like singing crystals. The translation device worked hard to understand the meaning. Slowly, words appeared on Elena's screen. Help, need, safe place, young ones. Elena looked more carefully at the creature and saw movement near its feet. 3 small shapes huddled against the large Vorthak's body. They were babies, each about the size of a house cat but with the same crystal-like appearance as the adult. Even from a distance, Elena could see that they were sick. Their normally bright crystal bodies looked dull and gray. The adult Vorthak, which Elena decided to call Hunter, made more crystal sounds. The translation device showed more words. May dead, sickness spreading, must find medicine, cannot take young ones on journey. Too dangerous. Elena stared at the message. This alien predator was asking her to take care of its babies. Everything she knew about Vorthak told her this was impossible. They were supposed to be fierce and protective of their young. They never trusted other species. Yet here was one asking a human for help. Hunter made more sounds and the device showed coordinates and time markers. Elena realized that Hunter was telling her where it was going and when it would return. The coordinates were thousands of miles away, across dangerous terrain that would take weeks to travel. The storm reached its peak intensity. Lightning struck constantly and the wind howled like a living thing. Hunter looked at the 3 small Vorthak, then at Elena. Even through the thick glass and the alien features, Elena could see the pain in those glowing eyes. Hunter bent down and gently picked up the 3 babies. Each one made soft crystal sounds that seemed like crying. Hunter carried them to Elena's door and set them down carefully. The largest baby, which had blue markings on its crystal shell, tried to follow Hunter. It made loud, angry sounds and swiped at the air with tiny but sharp claws. The other 2 babies huddled together. They looked even sicker than Elena had thought. Their crystal bodies were cracked in places, and they moved slowly like they were in pain. Hunter stood up and looked at Elena one more time. The creature pressed one clawed hand against the window, right where Elena's hand rested on the other side. For a moment, human and alien shared a connection that crossed all the differences between their species. Then Hunter turned and walked into the storm. Within seconds, the creature disappeared into the purple rain and lightning. Elena was left staring at 3 alien babies at her door. Elena's hands shook as she opened the door. The wind immediately tried to push her back inside, and rain soaked her clothes in seconds. The 3 baby Vorthak looked up at her with eyes that glowed like tiny suns. The largest one, with blue markings, made a threatening sound and raised its small claws. Elena knelt down slowly and spoke in a gentle voice, even though she knew they could not understand her words. "It's okay," she said. "I'm going to help you." She reached out carefully toward the largest baby. It snapped at her hand but missed. Elena did not pull away. She had worked with dangerous animals before and knew that showing fear would make things worse. The storm was getting too dangerous to stay outside. Elena gently scooped up the 2 smaller babies who were too sick to fight back. They felt warm and their crystal skin was surprisingly soft. The largest baby followed her inside, probably because it did not want to be separated from the others. Once inside, Elena set the babies down and looked at them carefully. They were beautiful creatures, even sick as they were. Their crystal bodies caught the light from her equipment and made rainbow patterns on the walls. But she could see that they needed help quickly. Elena looked out the window one more time, hoping to see Hunter returning. The storm continued to rage, and there was no sign of the adult Vorthak. Elena was now responsible for 3 alien babies that might die without proper care. She took a deep breath and activated her research equipment. If she was going to save these babies, she needed to learn everything about their species quickly. The next few days would determine whether Hunter's desperate choice had been the right one. Elena spent the first night watching the 3 baby Vorthak carefully. She had moved them into her main living area, where she could monitor them constantly. The largest baby, which she started calling Blue because of its blue markings, refused to sleep. It paced around the room, making soft crystal sounds and checking on the other 2 babies every few minutes. The 2 smaller babies worried Elena more. She decided to call them Spark and Shadow, based on how their crystal bodies reflected light. Spark was the smallest and sickest, with several cracks running through its crystal shell. Shadow was slightly larger and seemed more aware of its surroundings. But both babies moved very slowly and barely responded when Elena tried to interact with them. Elena's biggest problem was food. Her research files contained some information about adult Vorthak diets, but nothing about babies. She knew that adult Vorthak ate minerals and absorbed electrical energy, but she had no idea how to provide proper nutrition for growing babies. She started by offering them small pieces of the crystal formations she had collected for her research. Blue sniffed the crystals and made disgusted sounds. Spark and Shadow showed no interest at all. Elena tried different types of crystals, different temperatures, and even tried crushing the crystals into powder. Nothing worked. By the second day, Elena was getting desperate. The babies were getting weaker, especially Spark. Elena noticed that Blue kept touching the other 2 babies with its small claws, making gentle crystal sounds like it was trying to comfort them. Elena decided to try a different approach. She remembered that adult Vorthak absorbed electrical energy, so she connected small power cells to metal plates and offered them to the babies. Blue immediately showed interest, touching one of the plates with its claws. Small sparks of electricity flowed from the plate into Blue's crystal body, and the baby's shell became brighter. Elena smiled for the first time since the babies arrived. She had found part of the solution. She quickly set up more electrical feeding stations and helped Spark and Shadow connect to them. The electricity seemed to help, but Elena could tell it was not enough. That night, Elena was working late when she heard something unexpected. Music was playing softly from her personal entertainment system, a classical piece by Mozart that she often listened to while working. She looked over at the babies and gasped. All 3 baby Vorthak were moving in rhythm with the music. Their crystal bodies glowed brighter, and they seemed more alert and energetic than they had been since arriving. Blue was actually swaying back and forth, and Spark had lifted its head for the first time in 2 days. Elena experimented with different types of music. Classical music had the strongest effect, especially pieces with complex harmonies. Rock music made the babies restless and agitated. Gentle piano music seemed to calm them when they were upset. Elena realized that the Vorthak babies responded to harmonic frequencies in ways she did not understand. She began playing music during their electrical feeding times and noticed that they absorbed energy more efficiently when music was playing. On the 3rd day, Elena made another breakthrough. She was cleaning Spark's crystal shell when she noticed that certain areas felt different from others. Some spots were warm, others were cold, and a few areas actually vibrated slightly when she touched them. Elena used her medical scanners to examine the babies more closely. What she discovered amazed her. The baby Vorthak had internal organs that operated on quantum frequencies. Their bodies were like living computers that processed information using light, sound, and electrical energy all at the same time. Elena modified her medical equipment to read these quantum patterns. She found that Spark was sickest because its quantum frequencies were out of balance. The same plague that had killed Hunter's mate was causing the baby's internal frequencies to become chaotic. Elena worked for hours to develop a treatment. She used her research station's harmonic generators to create specific frequency patterns that seemed to stabilize Spark's quantum systems. It was like tuning a musical instrument, except the instrument was a living alien baby. The treatment worked. After 6 hours of harmonic therapy, Spark's crystal shell began to brighten. The cracks started to heal, and the baby began moving around more actively. Elena felt tears of relief rolling down her face. Blue watched Elena's treatment of Spark with obvious intelligence. The baby seemed to understand that Elena was helping, and it started bringing Elena things that might be useful. Blue carried small crystals, pieces of metal, and even Elena's tools around the room. Elena began to realize that these babies were much smarter than she had expected. Blue learned to operate simple switches and buttons after watching Elena do it just once. Shadow figured out how to open storage containers, and Spark began making sounds that seemed like attempts to copy Elena's speech. By the end of the first week, Elena had established a routine. The babies woke up when she did, ate electrical energy and specially prepared mineral supplements while listening to classical music, and spent their days exploring the research station. They followed Elena everywhere, watching everything she did with obvious fascination. Elena started talking to them constantly, explaining what she was doing and why. She knew they did not understand her words, but they seemed to enjoy the sound of her voice. Blue especially liked to sit near Elena while she worked, making soft, harmonious sounds that were almost like purring. The babies grew quickly under Elena's care. Their crystal shells became brighter and stronger every day. Blue's blue markings became more pronounced. Spark developed golden highlights in its crystal body, and Shadow's shell became so clear it was almost transparent. Elena also noticed that the babies were starting to mimic her behaviors. They tried to use tools like she did, though their claws made it difficult. They attempted to organize objects the way Elena organized her equipment. Most surprising of all, they began making sounds that resembled words. Blue was the first to successfully make a sound that resembled its name. "Boo," it said one morning, looking directly at Elena. Elena nearly dropped her coffee cup in surprise. "Blue?" Elena asked, pointing at the baby. "Boo," Blue repeated, then pointed one small claw at itself. Elena laughed and clapped her hands. Blue seemed pleased with her reaction and tried to make other sounds. Within days, all three babies were attempting to copy Elena's speech patterns. Elena began teaching them simple words and concepts. She pointed to objects and said their names repeatedly. The babies learned quickly, their advanced intelligence allowing them to grasp concepts that would take human children much longer to understand. By the second week, Elena realized that something unprecedented was happening. These alien babies were not just learning human behaviors. They were developing hybrid ways of thinking that combined Vorthak instincts with human learning methods. Blue showed Elena how to read the electrical patterns in crystal formations, something no human had ever learned before. Spark taught her to identify pure minerals by listening to the sounds they made when touched. Shadow demonstrated how to predict weather changes by observing the way light moved through crystals. Elena documented everything carefully. She was witnessing the first case of successful cross-species learning in human history. The baby Vorthak were becoming something new, something that had never existed before. They were still Vorthak, but they were also something more. As Elena watched Blue carefully organize her research tools while humming along to a Mozart concerto, she wondered what Hunter would think when it returned. Would the adult Vorthak recognize these changed babies as its own offspring? Or had Elena accidentally created something entirely new? 3 weeks had passed since Hunter left the babies with Elena, and the changes in the young Vorthak were remarkable. Blue, Spark, and Shadow had grown considerably, each now reaching about 2 feet in height. Their crystal shells had become more complex, with new patterns and colors appearing as they developed. Elena woke up each morning to find the babies had been busy during the night. They no longer slept at the same time she did. Instead, they took short naps throughout the day and remained active during the dark hours. Elena discovered they had been rearranging her equipment and organizing her research materials in ways that actually made her work more efficient. Blue had become fascinated with Elena's computer systems. The baby had learned to use the keyboard by watching Elena, though its claws made typing difficult. Elena created special tools that allowed Blue to interact with the computer more easily. Within days, Blue was helping Elena analyze data and even correcting errors in her calculations. Spark showed incredible talent for understanding the planet's mineral compositions. The small Vorthak could examine any crystal or rock and immediately identify its properties just by touching it. Spark taught Elena to listen to the subtle sounds that different minerals made when they vibrated. This skill helped Elena discover several new energy sources near her research station. Shadow had become Elena's early warning system for weather changes. The baby could detect approaching storms hours before Elena's instruments registered any changes. Shadow would become restless and make specific warning sounds whenever dangerous weather was coming. This ability had already saved Elena from being caught outside during 2 severe storms. Elena began to understand that the babies were not just learning from her. They were teaching her things about this planet that no human had ever known. The relationship had become truly mutual, with both species benefiting from the exchange of knowledge. Communication between Elena and the babies improved dramatically. They had developed a hybrid language that combined simple English words with Vorthak harmonic sounds and hand gestures. Blue could now say dozens of English words clearly, including Elena's name. When Blue said Elena in its crystal-clear voice, it sounded like music. The babies also learned to express complex emotions through their hybrid language. They could tell Elena when they were happy, sad, excited, or worried. They asked questions about things they did not understand and showed disappointment when Elena could not answer them. Elena's daily routine had completely adapted to include the babies. Every morning she prepared their electrical feeding stations while playing classical music. The babies would gather around their feeding areas and absorb energy while listening to the music. Elena noticed they preferred different composers for different moods. Mozart energized them, Bach helped them concentrate, and Beethoven seemed to inspire them to try new things. After feeding, Elena and the babies would work together on research projects. Elena had modified her equipment so the babies could operate it safely. Blue became expert at running computer analyses, Spark specialized in mineral identification, and Shadow focused on environmental monitoring. The babies showed remarkable problem-solving abilities. When Elena's water purification system broke down, Blue studied the problem for hours before suggesting a solution that Elena had not considered. The baby had figured out how to reroute the system using crystal formations as natural filters. Elena began to realize that the babies thought about problems differently than humans did. Where Elena would approach a problem step by step, the babies seemed to understand the whole problem at once and work backward to find solutions. Their methods were often more efficient than Elena's traditional approaches. The emotional bond between Elena and the babies grew stronger every day. They had started grooming Elena's hair the same way they cleaned each other's crystal shells. This behavior touched Elena deeply because it meant the babies considered her part of their family group. The babies also showed protective instincts toward Elena. When small predators approached the research station, all 3 babies would position themselves between Elena and the threat. Blue would make threatening sounds while Spark and Shadow flanked Elena protectively. These displays usually scared away any potential dangers. Elena documented how the babies played together and included her in their games. They had invented new games that combined Vorthak physical abilities with human concepts like rules and taking turns. Their favorite game involved using their natural electrical abilities to create light patterns while Elena played music. The result was like a light show synchronized to sound. The babies began showing individual personalities more clearly as they grew. Blue was the natural leader, always taking charge during problems and looking out for the other 2. Blue was also the most curious about human technology and spent hours studying Elena's equipment. Spark was the gentlest of the 3, always the first to comfort the others when they were upset. Spark had developed an amazing ability to create soothing harmonic sounds that could calm any tension in the group. Elena found that Spark's harmonics could even help her relax when she was stressed. Shadow was the most observant baby, noticing small details that others missed. Shadow often alerted the group to things that Elena and the other babies had not seen. Shadow also seemed to understand Elena's emotions better than the others, and would offer comfort when Elena felt lonely or worried. Elena's biggest concern was what would happen when Hunter returned. The babies had changed so much under human influence that she worried they might not fit back into Vorthak society. They had learned human concepts like individual expression, creativity, and emotional communication that might not exist in their original culture. One evening, Elena was working late when she noticed all three babies staring out the window toward the horizon. They made soft, excited sounds and their crystal shells glowed brighter than usual. Elena checked her instruments but detected nothing unusual. Blue turned to Elena and used their hybrid language to explain what they sensed. "Family coming," Blue said, combining English words with harmonic tones that conveyed both excitement and anxiety. "Big family, soon here." Elena's heart raced as she realized what Blue meant. Hunter was returning, probably with other adult Vorthak. Elena had always known this day would come, but she was not prepared for how emotional she felt about it. The babies seemed torn between excitement about seeing their own kind again and reluctance to leave Elena. They gathered around her that night, all of them touching her gently with their claws while making soft, sad sounds. Elena hugged each baby carefully, mindful of their crystal shells. "No matter what happens," she told them, "you will always be my family too." Blue looked up at Elena with those glowing eyes that had become so familiar and dear to her. "Elena family," Blue said clearly. "Always Elena family." As Elena lay awake that night listening to the baby's gentle harmonic breathing, she wondered what the next few days would bring. She had helped these alien babies grow and learn, but they had changed her just as much. She was no longer just a human scientist studying an alien world. She had become something new as well. Someone who understood that family could exist across the vast distances between species. The sound of approaching ships reached Elena's instruments just before dawn. Hunter was returning, and Elena would soon learn whether the choice to raise these babies as part human and part Vorthak had been wise or foolish. Whatever happened, she knew that the past 3 weeks had changed everyone involved in ways that could never be undone. Elena woke to the sound of her equipment alarms. The electromagnetic sensors were detecting massive energy signatures approaching from the north. She quickly checked her displays and saw what she had been both hoping for and dreading. 12 large spacecraft were descending toward her research station. Blue, Spark, and Shadow were already awake and moving restlessly around the habitat. Their crystal shells were glowing brighter than Elena had ever seen them, and they were making excited harmonic sounds to each other. They knew their own kind were coming. Elena looked out the window and saw the ships landing in a circle around her research station. Each ship was about the size of her entire habitat, made from the same crystal material as the Vorthak themselves. The ships pulsed with internal light as they settled onto the ground. The largest ship landed directly in front of Elena's dome. Through the transparent walls of the ship, Elena could see the massive form of Hunter. The adult Vorthak looked exactly the same as when it had left 6 weeks ago, but Elena noticed battle scars on its crystal shell that had not been there before. 11 other adult Vorthak emerged from the surrounding ships. Elena had never seen so many of the giant predators together before. Each one stood 12 feet tall with their characteristic 6 arms and glowing eyes. Their crystal shells showed signs of recent combat, with scratches and cracks that spoke of a difficult journey. The babies became more agitated as the adults approached. Blue moved to stand between Elena and the window while Spark and Shadow flanked her on either side. Elena realized with surprise that the babies were protecting her, not trying to get closer to their own kind. Hunter approached the habitat dome slowly, its glowing eyes focused on the babies. When Hunter saw how much the babies had grown and changed, it stopped moving entirely. Elena could see confusion and amazement in the adult Vorthak's posture. Elena activated her translation device and stepped forward. "Hunter," she said, using the hybrid language she had learned from the babies. "Welcome back." Hunter made complex harmonic sounds that the translation device struggled to process. The meaning came through slowly. "Young ones changed. How is this possible? They are larger, stronger, different." Blue stepped forward and began speaking to Hunter in pure Vorthak harmonics. Elena could not understand everything Blue said, but she caught familiar words mixed in with the alien sounds. Blue was explaining what had happened during Hunter's absence, using both Vorthak and human concepts to describe their experiences. The other adult Vorthak moved closer, their attention focused on the babies. Elena could sense their hostility through their aggressive postures and harsh harmonic sounds. Her translation device picked up fragments of their communication: contaminated, unnatural, dangerous to the clan. Spark and Shadow moved closer to Elena, making defensive sounds. They understood that the other adults disapproved of the changes in them. Shadow began creating the soothing harmonics that usually calmed tensions, but the adult Vorthak responded with even more aggressive postures. Hunter made authoritative sounds that quieted the other adults. Through the translator, Elena heard, "The young ones live. They are healthy and strong. This human succeeded where our own medicine failed." One of the other adults, whose crystal shell was darker and more scarred than the others, moved aggressively toward Elena's dome. The translation device conveyed its hostile message. "The young ones are corrupted. They have learned alien ways. They cannot return to the clan unchanged. Choose now, Hunter. Take the young ones and abandon the human, or face exile with them." Elena's heart sank as she understood the situation. Hunter was being forced to choose between saving the babies and maintaining their position in Vorthak society. She looked at Blue, Spark, and Shadow, seeing the conflict in their glowing eyes. They wanted to be with their own kind, but they did not want to abandon Elena. Elena made a decision that broke her heart. She knelt down next to the babies and spoke to them in their hybrid language. "You must go with Hunter," she said. "Your family needs you. Your people need you." Blue immediately protested, making distressed sounds and moving closer to Elena. "No, leave Elena," Blue said in English. "Elena family too." Spark and Shadow joined their protests, creating a complex harmony of distress that made Elena's eyes fill with tears. They had formed bonds with her that they did not want to break. Elena hugged each baby gently. "I love you all," she said, "but you belong with your own kind. Hunter risked everything to keep you safe. You must honor that sacrifice." Hunter observed this interaction with obvious surprise. The translation device picked up its confused harmonics. "The young ones choose the human over their own kind. This is impossible. Vorthak young always follow the clan leader." The dark-shelled adult made threatening sounds and moved closer to Elena's dome. "Proof that they are corrupted beyond redemption. We will take them by force if necessary." Blue suddenly moved between the dome wall and Hunter, facing the adult Vorthak with a posture Elena had never seen before. The baby's crystal shell blazed with brilliant light as it began making sounds that stunned every adult Vorthak into silence. Elena realized that Blue was creating harmonics that no Vorthak had ever produced before. The sounds combined traditional Vorthak frequencies with the musical principles that Elena had taught them. The result was incredibly complex and beautiful, conveying emotions and concepts that pure Vorthak language could not express. Spark and Shadow joined Blue in this new form of communication. Together, the three babies created a harmonic symphony that told the story of their time with Elena. They sang about learning to use tools, about solving problems together, about the comfort of music during feeding time, and about the love they had discovered between different species. The adult Vorthak listened in amazement as the babies demonstrated abilities that should not exist in their species. Blue showed how to operate Elena's computer systems. Spark demonstrated the mineral identification techniques they had learned. Shadow created weather prediction harmonics that were far more accurate than traditional Vorthak methods. Elena watched Hunter carefully during this demonstration. The adult Vorthak's posture showed deep concentration and growing understanding. Hunter was beginning to realize that the babies had not just survived their time with Elena, they had evolved into something new and more capable than traditional Vorthak. When the babies finished their demonstration, Hunter made a decision that surprised everyone. Instead of demanding that the babies return to traditional Vorthak ways, Hunter asked Elena a question that changed everything. "Human Elena," Hunter said through the translator, "will you teach our clan these new ways? Will you help our people learn what our young ones have learned?" The dark-shelled adult made outraged sounds, but Hunter silenced it with authoritative harmonics. "Our old ways are failing," Hunter continued. "The plague nearly destroyed us. Traditional solutions are not enough. These young ones have shown us new possibilities. Elena looked at Blue, Spark, and Shadow, seeing hope in their glowing eyes. They had found a way to bridge the gap between species, to prove that the changes in them were not corruptions but improvements. "I will help," Elena said, "but only if Blue, Spark, and Shadow can be part of teaching your people. They understand both worlds now. They are the key to making this work." Hunter considered this proposal while the other adults made various sounds of agreement and disagreement. The conversation that followed would determine not just the fate of 3 baby Vorthak, but the future relationship between their species and humanity. Elena held her breath as she waited for Hunter's decision, knowing that the next few moments would change everything for everyone involved. Hunter stood motionless for long moments, considering Elena's proposal, while the other adult Vorthak made increasingly agitated sounds. The dark-shelled leader of the war party moved closer to Hunter, its crystal shell pulsing with angry red light. "This is madness," the Dark One said, through harsh harmonics. "We cannot trust an alien with our clan's future. The young ones must choose between their corrupted ways and their duty to the clan." Elena watched as Blue, Spark, and Shadow moved to stand together in front of Hunter. They were no longer hiding behind Elena or showing fear of the adult Vorthak. Instead, they faced their elders with confidence and determination. Blue stepped forward and began speaking in the new hybrid harmonics they had developed. The sounds were unlike anything Elena had heard before, combining Vorthak emotional depth with human logical structure. Blue was not just communicating with the adults. Blue was teaching them a completely new way to think. "We are not corrupted," Blue sang in harmonics that somehow conveyed both Vorthak tradition and human innovation. "We are evolved. Elena showed us that survival requires adaptation, not just strength." Spark joined the communication, demonstrating the mineral analysis techniques that had helped Elena discover new energy sources. "We learned to see the planet differently," Spark explained, "to understand what it offers instead of just taking what we need." Shadow added weather prediction harmonics that were far more sophisticated than anything the adult Vorthak had ever heard. "We learned to work with the environment instead of fighting against it," Shadow sang. "Elena taught us that cooperation creates strength." The adult Vorthak listened in growing amazement as the babies continued their demonstration. Blue connected to Elena's computer system and showed complex calculations that solved resource distribution problems the clan had struggled with for generations. Spark identified crystal formations that could provide medical benefits for the plague that had killed so many Vorthak. Shadow predicted weather patterns that would allow safer travel across the planet's dangerous terrain. Elena saw the moment when Hunter truly understood what had happened to the babies. The adult Vorthak's crystal shell began glowing with the same bright intensity as the babies' shells. Hunter had realized that Elena had not corrupted the young ones. She had unlocked potential that already existed within them. "Show them the music," Elena said quietly to Blue. Blue looked at Elena with those familiar glowing eyes and nodded. The baby activated Elena's audio system and began playing Mozart's Piano Concerto No. 21, the piece that had first caused the babies to synchronize their movements weeks ago. As the music played, Blue, Spark, and Shadow began moving in perfect harmony with the sounds. Their crystal shells glowed in rhythm with the music, creating a light show that pulsed with mathematical precision. But more than that, they began adding their own harmonic frequencies to the music, creating a fusion of human composition and Vorthak natural resonance. The result was beautiful beyond anything Elena had imagined. The hybrid music spoke to emotions that neither species could express alone. It conveyed the joy of discovery, the pain of separation, the hope of reunion, and the love that could exist between completely different forms of life. The adult Vorthak stood transfixed as they experienced this new form of artistic expression. Even the dark-shelled leaders stopped making hostile sounds and listened with obvious fascination. Elena realized that the babies were showing the adults something that their species had never known existed: the possibility of creating beauty through cooperation with other life forms. When the music ended, Hunter made a decision that changed everything. "We will stay," Hunter announced in harmonics that carried absolute authority. "We will learn these new ways. The migration can wait." The dark-shelled leader protested immediately. "You risk the entire clan for this experiment. What if the human betrays us? What if these new ways weaken us instead of strengthening us?" Hunter turned to face the challenger directly. "Look at our young ones," Hunter said. They are stronger, healthier, and more capable than any Vorthak in our recorded history. They have learned to solve problems we could not solve, to see possibilities we could not see. If this is weakness, then our old ways have made us foolish. Blue stepped between Hunter and the Dark Leader, creating harmonics that conveyed both respect and determination. We do not ask you to abandon Vorthak ways, Blue sang. We ask you to expand them. Elena did not replace our nature. She helped us discover what our nature could become. Elena felt tears running down her face as she watched Blue defend both their species and their new relationship. The baby had grown far beyond anything she had expected, becoming a bridge between two completely different ways of understanding the universe. Spark and Shadow supported Blue with their own harmonics, creating a complex musical argument that demonstrated the practical benefits of human-Vorthak cooperation. They showed how Elena's medical techniques could cure the plague, how her research methods could find new resources, and how her problem-solving approaches could help the clan adapt to the changing conditions on their planet. One by one, the other adult Vorthak began to understand. Elena watched as their hostile postures relaxed and their aggressive harmonics softened. They were seeing evidence that cooperation with humans could save their species from the problems that traditional methods could not solve. Hunter made the final decision. Human Elena, we accept your offer. Teach our clan what our young ones have learned. Help us become what they have become. Elena stepped forward, her heart pounding with excitement and fear. I will teach you everything I can, she said. But Blue, Spark, and Shadow must be my partners in this. They understand both worlds now. They are the key to making this work. Hunter agreed immediately. They will be honored as the first of a new generation of Vorthak, teachers and bridges between our species. Over the following weeks, Elena's research station transformed into something unprecedented, the first human Vorthak cooperation center. Adult Vorthak learned to use human technology and problem-solving methods while teaching Elena and her human colleagues about crystal mathematics, harmonic engineering, and quantum frequency medicine. Blue, Spark, and Shadow became ambassadors between the species, translating not just language but entire ways of thinking. They helped adult Vorthak understand human concepts like creativity and individual expression, while helping humans appreciate Vorthak ideas about harmonic cooperation and crystal-based technology. Elena watched in amazement as young Vorthak from across the clan began developing the same enhanced abilities that Blue, Spark, and Shadow had shown. The hybrid education methods produced faster learning, better problem-solving skills, and stronger emotional intelligence in both species. 6 months after Hunter's return, Elena received a message that changed everything. The human government had detected the Vorthak ships and was sending a diplomatic mission to establish first contact. Elena's documentation of successful human Vorthak cooperation had convinced Earth's leaders that peaceful relations were possible. Elena stood in her expanded research facility, now home to dozens of humans and Vorthak, working together on projects that neither species could have accomplished alone. Blue approached her, now fully grown but still greeting her with the gentle harmonics they had shared since the beginning. Elena, Blue said, combining perfect English with traditional Vorthak respect harmonics. We have message from your people. They want to learn what we learned. They want to join the cooperation. Elena smiled as she looked around the facility filled with humans and Vorthak working side by side. Young Vorthak operated human computers while human children learned to create crystal harmonics. Scientists from both species collaborated on projects that were solving problems neither group could have addressed alone. Yes, Elena said to Blue. It's time to share what we've learned with both our peoples. That evening, Elena composed the first official message from humanity to the galaxy. As she wrote, Blue, Spark, and Shadow gathered around her, adding their own harmonic signatures to the communication. To any intelligent species listening, Elena's message began, We are not alone in the universe, and we are not enemies. We have learned that the greatest evolution comes not from competition, but from the courage to love and learn across the vast distances between different forms of life. We are family, waiting to be found. As Elena sent the message into space, she thought about how far they had all come from that stormy night when Hunter had left 3 sick babies at her door. That desperate choice had not just saved 3 lives. It had opened a door to a future where different species could become more than the sum of their parts through cooperation, understanding, and love. Blue, spark, and shadow had grown into something that had never existed before. Beings who belonged fully to both worlds while creating something entirely new. They were living proof that evolution was not just about survival, but about the endless possibilities that emerged. When life reached across the darkness to touch other forms of consciousness, Elena looked up at the stars and wondered what other species might be listening to their message, waiting for their own chance to discover that the universe was not a place of competition and loneliness, but a vast family still learning to recognize itself.